Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Fair Territory. A lot to discuss this week, and we're going to start off with something that I don't like to discuss, but it's inevitable when you cover this sport: injuries. Two big ones actually coming in the same game of sorts. Aaron Judge for the Yankees, Jacob DeGrom for the Rangers. This was Friday night. Jacob DeGrom, he officially goes on the injured list with elbow inflammation. It was initially described as forearm tightness. Whatever, it's DeGrom, he's hurt again, and while they say it's not serious, this is just the nature of it with Jacob DeGrom at this stage of his career, really for the last several years. And I thought The Athletic's Andy McCullough put it really well in his column that appeared on Saturday. He said, at this stage of his career, DeGrom is dealing less with his opponents than he is with his own physical limitations. And we can talk forever about the different issues that DeGrom has faced over the last several years, but here are the key numbers. Last two seasons, 156 and a third combined innings. 156 and a third over 2 years. It's not a lot. But the thing with DeGrom is he is so good that you don't necessarily need 30 starts. If the Rangers get 20 to 25, my guess is they'll probably be satisfied. And yes, he's getting $37 million a year, but he is so good in those 20 to 25 starts, or could be, that you're actually getting the value that you want. If you look at his pitching WAR and all of that, it kind of adds up. It's crazy, but I know that's what ultimately teams look at. Now, this season so far, he has pitched 30 and a third innings in 6 starts. He's, remember, starting slowly because of the issues that he had in his side in spring training. Then he had the wrist, now he's got the elbow, and here we go. Again, the bigger picture with Jacob DeGrom is, can he get you 20 to 25 starts, or 18 to 22, whatever the number is going to be, as long as it's not 5 to 10. It's got to be higher than that. It's got to be higher than 15, too. He's got to pitch. But DeGrom, as we have seen over the years, is a fragile sort, and it's not something he likes in his career. He hates being asked these questions, understandably so. But that is the reality for him, and it's going to be that way until he shows if he can ever pitch 30 to 35 starts again, which I don't know that anyone can expect. Aaron Judge with the Yankees, different story. Now, Aaron Judge has been quite durable in recent seasons for the most part. Now, he has a hip issue. As we tape this on Monday morning Eastern time, we don't know if he is going on the injured list or not. But you see over the last 3.5 games what the Yankees were like without Aaron Judge. And frankly, the Yankees' problems with Aaron Judge on the offensive end are sort of pronounced. Aaron Judge is one player. You've got 8 other positions in a lineup, and I want you to look at some different things that we cooked up for this show today on where the Yankees rank offensively. Let's start with where they are in their own division. The AL East, arguably the best division in baseball. This is runs per game. Yankees 23rd in the majors, and yes, last in their own division. Now, let's look at how they are faring position by position, and you can imagine it's not going to be all that good considering where they are ranked from the league's perspective. So you can see here where the Yankees are at each position. This is, again, OPS combined at each position. So essentially what they're getting from an offensive standpoint at each spot. They are below average in a number of places, catcher, third base, left field most notably. You'll note that center field and right field isn't great. Judge has kind of split his time between them, played more center. Now, they had some injuries, there's no question. Harrison Bader has been out. He's on his way back. Stanton is out probably until June. Donaldson out probably until at least mid-May. But with the Yankees, you've got to believe going into the season that injuries are going to occur. This is an older group of position players. So my point here is that even with Aaron Judge, this team has some problems offensively. They don't have great depth. Franchy Cordero, that experiment lasted, about 2 weeks? So I can see the Yankees having difficulties all season in this regard. They're going to play better, of course, this weekend. You can look at it as an aberration if you choose. But at the same time, you can also see the issues starting to kind of bubble up a little bit. And we're not even talking about the pitching, where they have a number of injuries as well. Rotation's been good. Bullpen, a little shaky. All right, that's DeGrom, that's Judge. Now let's keep going with a team that I would argue is the most disappointing in the majors right now. We'll get to another one that's disappointing at the end of this segment, but this is the most disappointing, given the expectations. That would be the St. Louis Cardinals. It's May 1st, ladies and gentlemen, and the St. Louis Cardinals are 10 games out of first place. 10! Now, I know it's the Pirates who are leading the division, and no one expects them to play at a 690 clip the whole year. But as I wrote in the Athletics newsletter today, the free newsletter that we publish every day, Monday to Friday, the Cardinals are a team with a rotation that was questionable at the start of the season. And nothing we have seen so far would lead me to believe that those questions aren't any less pronounced. This is a team that, if you look at from the standpoint of rotation ERA, from quality starts, their ranks are not very good. You can see it in the board right there. Hey, bottom third in those categories, rotation ERA and quality starts, also bottom third, or at least close to that, in runs per game. And that's been the disappointing area. That's the area I expect to improve. They have too much offensive talent. Arenado's been in a 2-week slump. They're not going to be in that position all year long. But where is their rotation strength going to come from? I know Adam Wainwright's coming back, but Adam Wainwright is 41. You cannot expect him to be an ace at this stage of his career. 4 of those 6 quality starts have come from Jordan Montgomery. So really, they need a lot more from that rotation, and I'm not so sure they're going to get it. So yes, I would call them the most disappointing team in April. The next team I'm going to talk about, well, they've been a disappointment all their own, in a different kind of way. The White Sox, I wrote at the start of the season in my preseason storylines that Tony La Russa was gone. Now we'll find out how much of a problem La Russa was and how much the roster is flawed, how these things might balance out. Now, we've seen the White Sox start. It's brutal. I know they had that great comeback yesterday, and maybe that will be a launching point for them. Let's hope so. It ended a 10-game losing streak that was brutal in every way. And even yesterday, they weren't all that great. They had the great 7-run ninth inning that kind of saved them, because before that, they had not played all that well. Now, this was supposed to be a different kind of season, right? New manager, Pedro Grifol, new coaching staff. La Russa was gone. And as I said, this was going to be the test. So the other day when I wrote about the White Sox and their trade possibilities, and yes, we should be talking about the White Sox trade possibilities at this point, a reader commented, "Ken, why don't you apologize to La Russa? You need to apologize to La Russa." And last year, if you recall, I wrote a column that was basically addressed to La Russa, "Dear Tony," saying, hey, this was at a point where he was not with the team. He was having health problems, and I said he probably shouldn't come back. Just take the time. He needs to get healthy and let the team play, because it hadn't worked. And it didn't work. And 2 things can be true. Tony La Russa was not the right manager for the White Sox, and the other thing being the White Sox are a mess and flawed. I don't know where they go from here. Now, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. It's May 1st. Maybe they get back into contention. I don't see it, but maybe. But at the deadline, they're going to face some really difficult decisions. And I wrote about this the other day. You can trade your potential free agents. That's one thing. It doesn't really do much in terms of what you might get back. We're talking about Giolito. We're talking about Yasmani Grandal, who's owed a ton of money. Keenan Middleton, Ronaldo Lopez. You're not going to get much for any of these guys. Then you could take it a step further and go to players who have an extra year of control beyond this season. Tim Anderson, who would have some value. He is certainly one guy in that category. Liam Hendricks, if he comes back healthy. And Kendall Graveman, another reliever that could have some value in the market. I can see that. Lance Lynn, if he pitches better, also fits in this description. 1 year beyond this one. And then, if you want to go even further, you've got Dylan Cease with a couple of years remaining after this one, and you could really tear it all down. Here's the problem. The White Sox just tore it all down. 2016-17, that's what they did. Their owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, is 87 years old. You think he wants to go through another rebuild? There's no way he wants to go through that. And yet, at the same time, this is a team that went backwards in payroll this year. So Reinsdorf is not going to want to rebuild, but it doesn't seem like he wants to spend. I don't have an answer here, folks, and they're going to face some really hard questions at the deadline. So there you have it. Judge, DeGrom, the Cardinals, the White Sox. We've got a lot more coming. Time now for the Inside Dish. This is the part of the show where each week I go inside a story I have written or inside a developing story in Major League Baseball on which maybe I have some thoughts and some ideas and some information that you might not have known. This week, though, I'm going to focus on a story I wrote last week. It appeared last Wednesday on The Athletic, and it was a long story about Jarred Kelenic of the Mariners and how he is finally living up to the hype. And this was a really interesting one to work on because it was building for several months. It started with his agent, Nick Chanik of Wasserman, basically telling me during the offseason, Kelenic's going to have a big year. You watch, Kelenic's going to have a big year. Now, you hear this kind of talk from agents once in a while, and sometimes it comes true, sometimes it doesn't. And it's not that I didn't trust Nick Chanik and what he was saying, but okay, I just kind of kept it in the back of my head. Then on February 20th, I get a text message from Tim Laker. He's the Mariners' former hitting coach. He works now for the Dodgers as a minor league hitting coordinator, but his mentor and what he does privately is work with Craig Wallenbach, who, of course, is a famed hitting guru. He's the guy that kind of got J.D. Martinez turned around and has worked with many other hitters. Craig Wallenbach is a big name within baseball circles. And Tim Laker said in this text to me, the same thing essentially Nick Chanik had said. Watch out for Kelenic. I was working with him this winter, and he looks great. He looks like he can be a star. Now, I knew Tim from previous engagements. I had talked to him for that story I did on Matt Carpenter, way back in the winter of 2021-22, before Carpenter's resurgence. And that story was about how Carpenter had rebuilt his swing and done all these things. Carpenter had worked with Laker and Wallenbach. So here we go. Now my antennae are way up. I'm paying attention to Jarred Kelenic in spring training, and I'm paying attention to him as the season starts. And lo and behold, he starts off really hot. So I'm thinking, now I want to write this. But it's a little bit tricky because Kelenic is a guy who, even though he's quite young, 23, has been through a lot in his career. Number 6 pick overall in the draft. Centerpiece of a huge trade involving Edwin Diaz going to the Mets. He goes to the Mariners. He was the subject of a service time manipulation debate started by one of his former owners, and he flopped in his first 2 major league seasons, 2021 and 22. So I knew, and I was told by his agent, that Jarred's not going to want to do a story right away. But the way I sold it was saying to the agent, Nick Chanik, again, hey, I just want to write about the process. I just want to write about what he did this winter to get himself right. And I'm not going to blow him up and say this guy's a star and look out, he's the next this or that and the other thing. No, it wasn't going to be that. It was pretty towing the line on just what he did and how he fixed himself. So Kelenic agreed to do that. And then I interviewed him. And I must say, I interview players all the time. It's what I do, right? This was one of the best interviews I've done in years, and I would even say ever. It wasn't anything I did. It was just how expansive he was about his process to rebuild himself, not just from a mechanical standpoint and a thought process standpoint and all the things hitters must do to correct what ails them, but also he talked about the work he had done with a sports psychologist and how much that had meant to him, how it had changed him both on and off the field. I really could not believe what I was hearing, and I got excited. And I normally do not get excited about an interview or anything like that. It's my job. It's kind of a clinical thing. You put it all together, you write, and that's that. But he was so good, so interesting to talk to, and as I said, so eloquent and expansive that I thought, okay, I've got a good story here. And when I get to that point, in my head, I'm always thinking the same thing. I've got it. Only I can screw it up. Now, you hope not to screw it up. You hope to write it well. Obviously, I had more work to do on it. I had to talk to the agent, had to talk to Laker, Mariners GM Justin Hollander, the Mariners hitting coach as well, Jarred DeHart. There was a lot that goes into it. And I ended up talking to Jarred twice more on the phone. He prefers phone to texting. So it was a fascinating conversation and a fascinating story to work on. And yes, the headline said living up to the hype or something along those lines, how he's finally living up to the hype. He's 3 for 18 since the story came out, but it seems to me and it seems to people with the Mariners and people around baseball that this kid now is on his way. And I would expect he will have a special season. That what his agent told me and what Tim Laker told me back in the winter, well, it all seems to be coming together. And good for Kelenic, because we see this all the time. Development of prospects is not always linear. It doesn't always go like this. It's more like this for many of them. Even Mike Trout got sent back to the minors in his first season with the Angels. So for Kelenic to endure all that he has and come out now on the other side, it's a tribute to him, his work ethic. It was just a really interesting story that I had a lot of fun doing, and that is how that one came about. And I'm proud of it. Actually thought I didn't screw it up, and I hope you guys, the ones who read it, enjoyed it. Time now for the Dude and Dork of the Week. As for the Dude, there can be only one choice this week, and fans reveled in his promotion to the major leagues and then in his 2 hits on Saturday, and I'm talking about the one and only Drew Maggi. Now, Drew Maggi, you know his story by now if you're a fan following the game. He's with the Pirates. He spent 13 years in the minor leagues, played more than 1,100 games in the minor leagues, had almost 5,000 plate appearances in the minor leagues. He had 1 major league call-up with the Twins, never got to play. So remember, this guy had never played in a major league game, gets called up by the Pirates at 33 years old, and finally gets into a game on Saturday. And it was so interesting. He already had been optioned. The only reason he was still with the Pirates was that they named him the 27th man for the doubleheader. Remember, you can add an extra guy to the roster when you play a doubleheader. Drew Maggi was that guy. Doesn't play in the first game. Doesn't start the second game. But the Pirates get out to a 12-0 lead, and here we go. It's Drew Maggi time. He gets a hit in his first at-bat, gets an extra base hit in his second at-bat. The games are in Washington, and yet there are a good number of Pirates fans there, which is great to see in its own right. That fan base starting to travel, getting excited again. They're chanting his name as he's doing his post-game interview. It was just a great moment. And if you caught him on foul territory last week, I suggest you go back to see that interview if you haven't already. His story is just amazing. And he said that his agent told him to retire 8 years ago. He said that there were times when he had to effectively pay to play, right? He wasn't making enough money to get by, and he was losing money by playing in the minors. Now, not every player can do this, obviously. This is how a lot of players get filtered out, but for whatever reason, Maggi was able to hang in there, able to keep going, and at age 33, he got his moment. Such an easy choice this week. Drew Maggi, Dude of the Week. All right, Dork of the Week. Well, this one to me is obvious as well, and it's whoever edited out of the highlights of the Oakland game on Friday night the signs that were essentially critical of the A's proposed move to Las Vegas. This was a silly act that brought more attention to the issue than it would have gotten otherwise. Now, if you are paying attention to this and if you saw what happened, you saw the signs, and there were some pretty pointed ones, to say the least. Several of them said sell, meaning John Fisher, the owner, should sell. 2 of them said Fisher out, meaning John Fisher should get out. There was one directed at the club president, Dave Kaval, basically calling him a liar. And there was another one that simply said stay. Now, these are fans engaging in their rights to free speech, and it's allowed at the Oakland ballpark. To their credit, they don't force people to take these signs down. But when the highlights of the game came out, when the home run by Ryan Noda was shown, it went out to right field where the signs were hanging. When the highlights initially came out, you could not see the signs. Miraculously, digitally, they were gone. Obviously, this caused some stir on social media. Someone noticed. Someone always notices this kind of thing, right? So the Dork of the Week goes to the people who edited these signs out. And I can assure you, it wasn't one person just making this decision. It was a directive, because that's how this kind of thing works. I worked at the MLB Network. I get it. I know. Major League Baseball issued a statement saying we were unaware of the edit. When it came to our attention, we corrected it as it isn't consistent with our policy. Actually, Major League Baseball was caught. Then they had to issue this statement. It sort of is their policy, and now they have to change their policy or at least not do this kind of thing again because people will notice and people will see that it's ridiculous. So, Dork of the Week goes to whoever was involved in this initially. You shouldn't have done it, and I trust that you won't be doing it again because now the secret is out. So, Dork of the Week, it's some random people. We don't know who their names are, but whoever made those decisions initially, and Major League Baseball for basically creating an environment in which this type of decision could be made. You're all Dorks of the Week. My game this week on Fox, weather permitting, will be Red Sox at Phillies, and I'm really looking forward to it, not just because the Red Sox are kind of interesting in their own weird way, and because the Phillies, of course, are the defending National League champions, but for the possibility that Bryce Harper might be back as a designated hitter. Now, as we tape this on Monday morning Eastern Time, we are waiting for the news of his visit to a doctor today in which he will receive word on whether he can be activated. It has been only 160 days since his Tommy John surgery. Now, a pitcher usually is at 12 to 18 months. Different for a position player. Different, again, for a position player who does not or will not play the field immediately, and that's Harper's situation. He, if he returns, will be the DH. But that said, 160 days, that's like nothing for Tommy John surgery. So hopefully we all do get to see Bryce again this week, and certainly I'll be quite excited to see him on Saturday. As always, Bryce Harper, one of the great players in the game. Now, time for your questions. Let's start with this one from that guy Garrett, also known as Gary Stud 94. He asked, are there more average teams this year than normal, or is it too early to tell how good or bad some teams are? Good question. Now, generally speaking, Memorial Day is the better gauge of where teams are. It's about a quarter of the season in, a little bit more than that, and that's when teams start to make assessments about just what they have. So it's still a little early. Now, what I've seen this year is not so much an increase in average teams. There are about 12 teams right now within 3 games of 500. I didn't go back and research this, but I would expect that's fairly normal. What is standing out so far are the number of not just bad teams, but really bad teams. And we've got the Nationals on pace to lose 102, the Rockies 112, the White Sox 117, the Royals 123, and the A's 128. Now, if you recall, back in the day, losing 100 games was a real black mark. It was kind of like the way strikeouts are now. Strikeouts were once considered really bad. Now people kind of accept it. And we've come to accept 100-loss seasons as if they just happen. In the tanking era, they happen more often than not. 2019, 21, and 22, the last 3 full seasons, we've had 4 100-loss teams. Since the realignment that brought us 6 divisions in 1995, that had happened only once before, in 2002. So that's my bigger concern right now. More bad teams. And we'll see. Some of these teams will level off a little bit and play better. Some might not. Next question from Ethan Booth. How real is Cody Bellinger's comeback? Good question. And I would say it's real. As we sit here on Monday morning, he's batting .295 with 6 homers, .956 OPS. That's MVP Cody, essentially. The most encouraging thing, though, is his performance against left-handers. His OPS against left-handers over 1,000. It's even better than it is against right-handers. Cody, of course, is a left-handed hitter. And Megan Montemurro of the Chicago Tribune pointed out this stat yesterday, and it really is telling. Last 3 seasons, prior to this one, Cody Bellinger, 6 home runs in 339 plate appearances off left-handers. This season, 4 home runs already off lefties in 40 plate appearances. Cody Bellinger looks like he's back. I saw him in Oakland a couple of weeks ago. He seemed really happy with the Cubs. Maybe the fresh start just did him good. This one is from Braden, also known as Howard_114. Who are some of your dark horse MVP candidates? Is Wander Franco or Randy Arozarena a candidate as of now? Absolutely, both those guys are candidates. They are playing for the best team in baseball. They are both in the top 6 in the American League in wins above replacement. That's the Fangraphs version. They're having great years. Now, Mike Trout, he's also having a great year, not a dark horse candidate. The guy who is leading in wins above replacement in the American League is actually Matt Chapman of the Blue Jays. I don't know if you consider him a dark horse, but he's never really been an MVP candidate before. So I would put him in that conversation as well. It's only 1 month, but yeah, we've got some interesting candidates for sure. Next question. Whoa, from the one and only Eric Kratz. Eric Kratz 31. He actually uses his real name in his handle. Eric asks, could you beat AJ Pierzynski in a spell contest? Now, there aren't a lot of things from a physical standpoint that I could beat AJ Pierzynski in. I would suggest that there probably are none. But spelling, that's my wheelhouse. I'm a great speller. You can ask my kids, you can ask my wife. That's one thing I can do well. There's not a lot that I can do well in this world, but spelling is one of them. So if AJ on Foul Territory wants to come at me with some kind of spelling challenge, I'm ready. Thanks to everyone for listening and watching. Hey, thanks for your questions as well. They're really good and we enjoy answering them. You can like us or subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Also, of course, subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back next Monday, of course. I want everyone to have a great week. Enjoy your baseball, and we'll talk to you soon.
Foul Territory fans, listen up. Our friends at BetMGM are running an MLB Bet $10, get $100 instantly promo with the bonus code SPICYMLB. Here's how it works. Sign up and deposit at least $10 into your newly created account. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Place a pre-game moneyline wager of at least $10 on any MLB team to win at standard odds price, and you will receive $100 in bonus bets instantly. If you sign up in Massachusetts or Ohio, you receive $200 in bonus bets. Use the bonus code SPICYMLB.